2021 DAR small virtual meeting. My name is Lindsay Van Slambrook. The other board members present this afternoon are Glenn Gardner, Julia Martin, Fillmore Wilson, and Bill Huey will be joining us momentarily. City staff present are Kim Lavin and Tori Parrish. The order of the meeting today will be as follows. First, we'll hear an introduction and overview of the project by city staff to the board and for the public, followed by the applicant's presentation. This is a 10-minute time limit. And we ask that if you are speaking, please state your name first and last clearly for the record. Anyone speaking on behalf of the project, the property owners, the architects, designers, please speak during this session. This is followed by a period. I'll ask the board if they have any questions for the applicant. Once that is complete, we'll move on to a period of public comment. Again, if you are speaking as a member of the public, please state your name first and last clearly for the record. After public comment, we will move to city staff comments and recommendations. On the heels of public comment and then recommendations from city and staff, the applicant will have the opportunity to respond or clarify anything. Once that is complete, we'll move on to board discussion and a vote. The following items have been deferred today. 35 Devereaux and 12 Magazine, both of those were withdrawn by the applicant. I would like to remind everyone to please limit your comments to architecture only. Comments related to zoning, such as parking, traffic, lot coverage, livability concerns, those are not within the purview of this board and cannot be voiced here. Now Kim is going to provide some virtual meeting protocol.
Thank you, Lindsay. Staff will control the PowerPoint presentation that includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline in accordance with the submittal requirements. Applicants simply need to ask staff to advance to the next slide during your presentation. Applicants, staff, and board members are required to give their name whenever speaking. Video and microphone have been disabled for attendees. Attendees, not board members or staff, will only be given the capability to speak when they're called upon during public comment period. Chat and Q&A functions have been disabled for everyone. Public comment, the applicant and all team members and the public have been required to register to indicate the project they wish to comment on and submit any documents in advance of the meeting. Just as in in-person meetings, all applications heard today are part of a public meeting format. If you've registered and will speak during the public comment portion of the meeting, you'll need to state your name and address for the record. Those members of the public that have registered will be called on in order of project. Members of the public that speak are encouraged to remain in the meeting for the completion of the item they've commented on. Staff will call on the registered members of the public to speak for each project. Unregistered members of the public who raise their hand will not be called on. The board members will be polled by chairperson for comments in their vote on the motion. Each member, when voting, should respond yay in favor or nay not in favor. The chair shall reread the motion verbatim, and the board member making the motion should correct the chair if she has not reread the motion accurately. If a board member needs to recuse, he or she will be temporarily removed from the meeting and placed back in the meeting at the start of the next agenda item. If the board needs to go into an executive session, they will call into a separate conference line, and all video and audio on Zoom will be temporarily turned off until they are ready to return to the regular meeting. Results and staff comments will be posted on the city website at www.charleston-sc.gov/BAR. And lastly, these proceedings are being recorded. Phew.
Thank you, Kim. We'll move on to the first agenda item, which is 205 St. Philip Street.
205 St. Philip Street is requesting final approval for a rear addition. The main house on the property is a category 4 and it's in the Cannonboro, Elliottboro neighborhood. It was constructed before 1840 and in the old city district. And for familiarization, here's the property on the west side of the street, just south of Spring Street. And here's the main house on the property. And this image is the south side of the house. And you can see all the iterations and additions in this guy. There's a close-up on that. The previous motion in August of last year, on the 27th, was conceptual approval with staff comments and board suggestion to eliminate porch element in place of the cantilevered element over the entry door. Staff comments were a hierarchy of form in the single house siding is very typical. Thus, the addition should be smaller in volume than that of the original structure. The windows, roofing, and siding should be differentiated from the original building. The staff recommended deferral with staff comments noted. Some of the previous board comments where I agree with staff on the general architectural direction. It comes down to height and width of the rear building. Another board member said it's impossible to keep getting smaller and smaller. There must be some anomalies to the hierarchy. Another board member said eliminate or run a different roof to make it less wide. And lastly, another board member was more receptive if the porch was cantilevered over the door to reduce the width. And if Mrs. O'Connor is here, Mrs. O'Connor, you have the floor whenever you're ready.
Mrs. O'Connor, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, and see.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. Kim, could you go to the elevation page? Yeah, right there. Thanks. So thanks very much. Actually, Kim, could you go to the B201?
B?
Yeah.
Which way is it?
There it is. Oh, okay. There you go. So this is a depiction of what we had submitted last time versus this time. So essentially we took the board's comments about the porch and did a bracketed roof over sort of a maybe a little raised patio element versus a proper porch on the side to sort of reduce the volume and the visibility from the street. That's probably pretty much the only part of this building that will be visible because it's so far back on the property. Additionally, we did end up needing to do sort of a two-story connector piece, but don't believe that that will be visible at all because it's tucked in fully behind the volume of the second house. And it's definitely, you know, sort of not as wide as well. So it tucks in pretty nicely. But essentially, we kept the design the way it was. We appreciated the fact that you recognize that we have kept the ceiling heights low, and there really wasn't a lot that we could do about the height of the building. But it is, in my opinion, you know, as secondary as we can make it, particularly when you look at it with the main front house. So Kim, could you show that one site section that shows all of the buildings together?
Do you know where it is, Julie? Is
Yeah,
there
you go. So yeah, I mean, that's basically what we've done. Took your comments to heart. The materials will be differentiated in that we'll be using hardy plank siding, we'll be using modern windows and modern roofing. So I feel like the differentiation will take place from the historic buildings in that. So we are asking for final approval, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connor. Are there any questions from board members for Ms. O'Connor?
I have a quick one. What's the material proposed for the porch floor and the stair tread? I just couldn't tell from your section.
Yeah, so that'll be masonry. So it would be, you know, a stucco rise and then a bluestone top. My clients are preparing, I think we also submitted the landscape plan from Cindy Klein, but a new sort of whole landscape plan, and it will include some really beautiful materials and hardscaping.
Thank you.
Any other board questions? All right, we'll move on to public comment.
We don't have any public comment.
All right, on to Kim, city staff recommendations.
Thank you. We just have a couple comments. The rear addition may be further differentiated by using a 6/6 window instead of a 2/2, but all other materials and finishes clearly delineate separate construction campaigns, so this element is appropriate as proposed. The hyphen has been extended to include a second story since conceptual approval was granted. Volumetrically on paper, the previous version was more appropriate and respectful of the addition, but it will be too far away to perceive from St. Philip Street and blocked by a gable roof on Spring Street. So the staff's recommending final approval with staff comments and final approval. There will be no final drawings if that's the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Ms. O'Connor, did you want to clarify anything in response to staff comments, or do you need?
No, thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to board discussion and a vote.
I'll start. I was not here for the original application, but it does appear that the applicant has answered the board's calls for a few tweaks. And I'm pretty sure that this new volume is going to be the most logical and orderly volume on this site. So I feel good about it. One little suggestion I was going to offer is that the pitch of the little canopy roof could be steeper now that it's shallower. You know, you have plenty of height that you could take advantage of. But otherwise, I have no issue with it, and I agree with staff.
Glenn Gardner, I have the same feeling. I think the progress that's been made, in my opinion, this has made it to a level where I'm comfortable supporting it for approval.
Fillmore Wilson, I agree with my fellow board members. I think the questions have been addressed, and I am perfectly comfortable with approval.
I'll just make a motion for final approval with staff comments. And that's it, right? No final review by staff, Kim?
That's right.
Okay. And I think it's implicit in your first comment that the 6/6 is optional, right? Not mandatory.
That's right.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for final approval with staff comments. Do we have a second?
Second, Glenn Gardner.
Put it to a vote. Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor?
Glenn?
Yay in favor.
The chair votes with the majority and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 4. As a reminder, agenda item number 3, Magazine Street, was withdrawn by the applicant. Agenda item 4 is 84 Linwood Boulevard. Kim, you'll give a.
Madam Chairwoman, I'll be recusing.
I will be removing Glenn. Okay, Glenn has been removed. 84 Lenwood is requesting preliminary approval for a new entry stair, new garage, and hardscaping. The building is a Category 2 in the Charleston neighborhood and was built in 1800 in the Old and Historic District. For a little bit of context, it's on the east side of the street, just south of Trad. This property is very unique, so I'm sure Eddie will be doing a great job, but the driveway, the entrance is on Trad and it comes down all this way. This is where the proposed garage will be. The property line then comes this way down here, if you can follow my mouse, across the front and wraps around this way. The extent of the property line is to here, and then it comes back to the driveway. So very unique lot. And this is the awesome photo that I could find on Google. My apologies. This image is looking south on Lenwood and looking north on Lenwood. And if Mr. Fava wants to take it from here, You have the floor whenever you're ready.
There?
Yes,
Okay, good evening. Thank you for sitting this one out for us this evening, or sitting this with us this evening. It's 84 Linwood Avenue. We were representing Boo and Isaac Morton. As Kim referenced, it's a magnificent property, and I think our goal with what we were doing was trying to be as minimally invasive and anonymous as possible, not trying to make any kind of design statement. But on the first next page, please, Kim. As Kim referenced, it is an 84 Linwood address, but the drive is literally from Trad Street, more than 200 plus feet back to it. Where you see on the survey where the pad returns, there was a structure there up until around 2004, and a pool where we're currently proposing one with the help of Glenn and all of his landscape design work on this project. The last and minor item is a staircase that's off of Linwood Boulevard, where a current third or fourth iteration of one, which is not historic, sits presently. Next page, please. So again, just a more detailed site plan of the existing conditions, and we have vetted this with the zoning department, Lee and Penny. No issues there. Next, please. As Kim had highlighted, the area where we are putting the proposed garage, where a kind of screen porch structure had stood previously, the location of the stair, and immediately to the right of the garage location on the site plan where the proposed pool will be is where one stood previously, or sat previously, and is being put back into place with a much more handsome design. Next. So as far as the plan goes, the one to the left is the proposed entry stair, which becomes more of just a straight run, a masonry stair, something that's much more appropriate to the caliber of this structure. The idea is, again, it's anonymous with a iron rail and covered with probably fig ivy or something like that. The current stair is a wood stair, again, post 2004, that's demonstrated on the right-hand plan, which kind of has an awkward transition between the two spaces. Next. The garage structure is again very modest, a one-level structure with a shed roof, so not to be obtrusive in any way, shape, or form to the neighbors. It is completely behind and out of view from anything publicly. And the left area shows where it would sit in its proposed design. The existing shows the open area. Next. Those are elevations of the garage structure, and with the stepped parapet, it will be done all out of masonry, and just very traditional kind of carriage doors. The bottom drawing illustrates the new proposed masonry stair and iron rail with sandstone treads. Next page. So just some perspectives of what is there presently, which is not something you can see in reality. We're just taking some license there to show you what it is. Next page. And what would be proposed out of all masonry, as we said, and detached from the existing house. Next page. The area for the current garage, where the garage would sit, and as proposed. Next, please. And we've got just some reference photos, and as Kim indicated, it's a little difficult to see, but top left is as you approach the house, which would be on the right from Linwood. The next one is looking head on to it. The one over is the gateway to it, and once inside the property, that's what you see, where the entry stair would be to the right under the canopy of the tree. The far right photo at the top is the view of the gate to the Trad Street area. And the next photo down in row 2, far left, is the length of the driveway. If I'm standing with Trad Street at my back, where you get the length, you can see perspective of where it goes up. and it terminates at the next photo where the proposed new garage would sit. The next photo is looking back towards the house where the garage would be adjacent where the former structure was. The next several photos are really just trying to give you an idea of the staircase that's there presently, kind of oddly put together with some maybe less than typical balusters and rails. It's been there a little while and maybe not out of the best material and starting to show some signs of rot, but more than anything, it just seems a little odd for the home, and thought something a little less obtrusive and more substantial material-wise would be more appropriate. Last on the bottom right is the view from Trad Street and the entry of the garage there, and the idea that there's no visibility of the structures or the proposed landscape work with the pool. Next, please. And then those were really just some reference photos that we were trying to say that we really didn't have any intention of making a statement with the garage, but they did want to do it out of high quality materials out of respect for the house. So something in the character of those on the top row with both the garage and the staircase. The bottom right 4 photos are all in reference to the structure in the pool that had been there prior, and plans addressing that as well. Next, please. And then these are Glenn's plans where all of the associated landscaping details and the layout for the pool were put together. Next, please. I think again, as you can see, it's been well specified with the materials and where the pool would sit. All of it is not visible, and I think here, because of it's a category 2, but a significant improvement, but extremely respectful of what the house is doing. The pool's 14 by 30 in a current, or what was a former location, with the stone band around it. There's a low masonry wall at the right where you see the seating area. It's perforated brick. Again, not visible, but a wonderful addition to the property, defining and securing the pool area. Next, please. And I can probably go through these rather quickly, but addressing the staircase, that's what we had discussed before. That's the existing area, and Glenn has been kind enough to weigh in on how that area would be re-landscaped. Next, please. And this is the existing area of the rear that you had seen when we were putting the garage and the pool, where presently it's just a drive and a lawn. The area of the demolition. Next, please. The simple solution to the new stair, which opens up the space and respects kind of the tree that had been planted there prior. Next, please. The pool design and how it will connect with paving and the materials that have been specified accordingly for the garage section. Again, it's remote, will not have any impact visually or otherwise really with neighbors. Next, please. And these are Glenn's details associated with all of the materials and whatnot. But we did speak with both Historic Charleston Preservation Society, and there were objections from neither. And I know the Mortons spoke with their neighbors at least I know 86 and 129 Trad, which are adjacent and probably most impacted. And there were not objections voiced by them either. So happy to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fava. Are there any board questions at this time? All right, we'll move on to public comment.
There are no public comments.
All right, then Kim, I'll turn it over to you for city staff comments and recommendations.
We just have a couple. Although it's very handsome, unfortunately, the garage is not visible from the street. The much improved stair is visible, but again, an improvement on what's there and relates to the building more appropriately for the historic house. And the hardscaping is minimally visible, if at all, but it appears to completely be appropriate and lovely. So we are recommending final approval. Thank you.
Kim, Mr. Fava, did you have any response to the staff comments?
No, we appreciate it. And Morton's and myself and Glenn both, thank you.
All right. Now we'll open it up for board discussion and a vote.
This is Julia. I think it all looks great. I wish that stair could magically float without the wall support back at the porch, but it's totally fine. I think this is lovely, and I agree with staff.
Fillmore Wilson here. Yeah, it's, I don't think, it would be difficult to find something to object to in this. It's a really nice plan, and I particularly appreciate the materials in the garage. So I agree with staff.
This is Lindsay, I agree with staff's comments that it is unfortunate that the garage is not more visible. It'd be really nice. So I agree with staff.
All right, I'll make a motion for just final approval.
Bill, did you have?
Oh, I was just going to say I did log in late, and I apologize. I don't know if I'm eligible to vote on this, but I did review the drawings ahead of time, and I do agree with staff's comments and recommendation.
Yeah, so you can vote. Julia, did you want to make a motion?
Sure, just for final approval.
All right, we have a motion on the floor from Julia for final approval. Do we have a second?
Fillmore Wilson, I'll second.
Thank you. Put it to a vote. Bill,
Yay in favor.
Julia,
Yay in favor.
Fillmore,
Yay in favor.
chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all. Nice to see you. Take care. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Right, let's bring Glenn back in.
Will do. You can find him.
Welcome back, Glenn. We'll move on now to agenda item number 5, 42 Charlotte Street. Pam, if you give an introduction.
Yeah, 42 Charlotte Street is requesting conceptual approval for the new construction of a duplex at rear. The buildings are category 1 and 2 in the Mezquite Ragboro district, although it's a separate lot. The main building was constructed in 1831 and it's in the old historic district. For your familiarization, this is the property in question on the north side of the street between Elizabeth and Alexander. Here are a couple existing site photos. This is looking toward the east. And these are some survey cards. The first one is from 1973. There's a large amount of notes here. The notes are kind of humorous. It says, "We were denied entrance 3 or 4 times into the property because the wife was not at home." So they were successful the time after that. The East Side team was very persistent. The next one on the right is from 1985. And these are the Sanborn maps, 1888, 1902, and 1944. And Mr. Hughley, if you're here, you can have the floor whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Kim. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Hi, I'm John Paul Hughley. I'm the founder of the American College of the Building Arts, and this is a new project for us. 42, Kim mentioned it. It's behind 40 Charlotte, 1831, Category 2 building. The front house has a lot of historic ties to the building arts, which is important to us. And the fact that the people that have owned the house from the very beginning, even the lot before was a carpenter, the person that built it was a lumber merchant. The second family, you can see the picture there that Kim has on the screen at the bottom, shows the Walker family, which had the property for some 70 years. They were stone importers and they introduced a lot of the stone elements to the property, the beautiful steps and marble mantles. Kim, can you go to the next picture? Lot study is the most important part to understand about this lot. It too, like the last project, is very deep. It's in the green area up there at the top, shows you that the lot's 254 feet. And as Charlotte Street kind of diverges from Chapel Street, these lots get extremely deep through there. just looking kind of down Charlotte Street, you can see in the red, a typical lot would be 112 to a whole block is 224. So a whole entire block could fit in our lot and still leave about 30 feet. So that weighed into the idea of what we wanted to do with this, looking at the back buildings and meeting the neighbors and trying to understand what all could be built back here. Kim, can you go to the next section, next picture, section 3? Yeah, this section was most helpful. You can see the historic house on the right at the top. You can see kind of from the front line back to our proposed building in the back it's almost 200 feet to the front wall, but it's 200 and something to the middle of the building. You can see the building there on the bottom left and kind of a footprint, but pay attention, there's a large tree that's on the east side, an oak tree that we were paying respect to. So over the last 2 years of owning this property, I started looking at the light on the property, the architectural history of the neighborhood, which I didn't know a lot about, even though I've lived here for a while, and the present day neighbor concerns, all the neighborhood's concerns. And what was most interesting to me was in presenting to the BAR staff of this last year and to our neighbors was kind of the number one issue has been the way you would develop any property with this much land in the back. And I committed kind of early on and that I wasn't looking to be a developer and put 7 more lots back there as, kind of zoned, but particularly building something for me, myself, and in this case, it's going to be a duplex, so I can help fund some of the projects for the graduates of the college and the students. So that's really important to me. Will you go to the next slide? Flip on through these next few, just go slow there. These are things you've seen before you. This is the straw bale wall that you approved that has the traditional lime and brick cap to it that we did as a workshop with the students to kind of define it. There it is, stay on that shot. That kind of gives you a great look. Looking north, you see the huge oak tree on the right. Our building will be set back behind this garden wall in what is called 42. This picture is taken from 40. You can see if you look all the way back, you can see the White House with the blue shutters. That sits on Chapel Street. Okay, let's go to the next slide, Kim, please. Overwhelming what we learned through that workshop and getting to know neighbors were there had been a battle before on our street of Charlotte Street at 21. And this is where they developed the back of a property where they added 4 more units. In this case, it's a smaller lot than ours. It's only 0.38 of an acre. We're 0.48, but they were able to bring in smaller kind of what's popular today and having a, I don't know if you call it a micro home or something small. And I kind of committed from day one that although I wanted to have a place where I live and work and entertain with the building arts to showcase, I would not necessarily want to go that direction. And I think overwhelming, you'll see in the letter of support, the neighbors are really adamant about, please don't chop it up. And so I think through our studies with some of the students and the work we've done, we've shown the outbuildings that are here. I mean, obviously in our neighborhood, we have much larger lots. We have a lot of not just kitchen houses and tenements and wagon sheds and barns and stables. And in our case, we even had a greenhouse. But to avail to the neighbors issue, we really proposed, in this conceptual review that we keep this duplex as kind of one outbuilding. In this case, the direction, the form is kind of a coach house, as we're calling it. Next photograph, Kim, please, slide 9. This is probably the most important one to pay attention to. It's kind of 2 points in one slide. The left gives you the evolution of where we started. We were looking at all the forms in the neighborhood through Sanborn maps with help from some of the historians to say, wow, we really have lost so many of our larger outbuildings, not just stables and different buildings, but the one on the left kind of shows going from top to bottom where we felt a building at the back of a property is traditional. It usually is set on the line of the property. There's not a fence. In this case, working with zoning and some of the challenges that the previous neighbors had, we pulled it back and kept shrinking our building, but we were tight in between the tree and our setbacks. We have a neighbor in the back who really worked with us from day one saying, She didn't want anything built here, but if she did, the more setback, the more we could work together, which I'm hoping we tried really hard on to accomplish. Can we go back to that photograph? So the ones on the right is really important. This is showing, we found plenty of examples of larger outbuildings, and we're aware of 54306, and we want to make sure it is subordinate. So we brought all of our heights and footprints, but what we wanted to show was which model did we want to pick using our timber framers and picking something that is authentic. If you look at that photograph of the Sanborn maps, kind of in the middle, this is a great photograph of Meeting Street right up in close to us, which shows, oh wait, go back one. Yeah, upper right. Nope, you're fine, right there.
Zoom
Go
in.
back, right, stay on there, right there. Right on that shot up in the middle, you'll see 4 different residential outbuildings. And this is just the easiest one because it's clear. 304.5 Meeting Street is approximately 50 by 58. So it's a large structure in the back. It's not a look that we wanted from a timber framing perspective. The second one down, which is labeled, if you could zoom in, I don't know how close y'all can see, I cannot, it's very small, but it says wagon shed. It's pretty cool. It's kind of the one we went after. You're on it, you stay on that shot. It's, yeah, there you go. It's the second one down in the middle. Yeah, slide down a little bit. Keep sliding down.
Mr. Hughley, you've got about 2 minutes left.
Yep. So this form is the best form that we've had, which is the wagon shed, which is more like a 36 by 54. So the studies that we've done are attached at the bottom. We put them in there for y'all's reference, and with the drawings as well. Kim, can you just jump on down to the actual couple more shots? Right there, they're the height studies. There's a good one. Back up one. Go forward one. Okay, so there's the height study of our barn-like structure on the left with its glass conservatory, compared to the heights of Chapel Street. And we know we're shorter than the front house, which is at 45 feet. We're at 30 feet. We just place these against that. And then will you go forward, Kim, one more, please? These were studies that Kim asked us to do, looking down from the front and looking back and starting to get a sense of how far back this structure sits. It's right at 200 feet back. Go one more, Kim, and it shows you from Chapel Street. This is from Chapel Street looking through 2 of the houses, kind of the view you would get. I didn't mention the glass little conservatory. It was on the property. There was a glass structure, and we want to introduce that. Go one more, Kim, and I'll wrap up for you. Oh, go back one. Sorry. Yeah. So these are the looks through to the property. The main points here are that we have a charrette coming up with the students to start doing design of windows and doors, but we wanted to get a general direction and conceptual that is this form, this one structure, a duplex in the back of the property, the direction for which we want to go, better than trying to break it up into smaller units. And we feel that way. And then more importantly, we feel like we met the test of 54306. And then finally, creating kind of a living laboratory of where we can showcase the authenticity of timber framing and masonry and plaster. We don't have that here in Charleston. We don't have one place to go to see that. If you have any questions, I'll stand by. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughley. Do we have any board questions at this time?
I have a quick one. Since it seems like height is kind of sensitive, I'm curious why you are raising the first floor, because doesn't it sort of render those carriage doors unusable?
Yeah, great question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I was on. We're going to do a raised basement like the front house has in this house. So we do have to work on that transition. The staff has already given me a couple of ideas of what to do, but we're going to work in the charrette coming up about how it's still, we're calling it a coach house right now, can still keep its architectural direction as a coach house, but still also have a little raised. And you want to do that in timber framing. I know you know, Julia, we don't want that splash line off there, even though we have the brick there. We would love to have some kind of raised 18 inches base if we can. Did that answer your question?
Sure, thank you.
I just have one question. It appears to be 30 feet plus the parapet. Plus, what is the height of the cupola? What's the overall height of the building?
I think, Glenn, it's 37 or 38. I should know that, but I don't know. It's on there, but the ridge is where we measured it from. Yeah, go down, zoom into that. Does that go to the cupola or just the height?
Just the ridge.
Yeah. And that's what we went off of just because of sections 354, 308. I think it's 7 feet if I'm remembering correctly. Did you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Any other board questions at this time? All right, we'll move on to public comment, and we have several that I'll read out. All right. To Charleston's Board of Architectural Review from Vicki and Pete Neighbor, the owners of 40 Charlotte Street. We're the new owners of 40 Charlotte Street and purchased this property with knowledge and design interest of what is being proposed to you on February 5th, 2021. The new structure known as 42 Charlotte Street sits within a horizontal property regime that we share with the applicant, John Paul Hughley. We have studied other options with more structures and smaller footprints, broken up massing and scale, and prefer one brick structure with a relief system program, hence the added glass conservatory. We think that was a great compromise for us in the design process with a nod to history for the glass structure that was once here. We realize our front structure is tall, almost 45 feet, and working with Mr. Hughley on the duplex, he was able to make the structure a story and a half on this first submission by slightly adding to the footprint to restrict the height, i.e. 2 full stories or more. Given that this structure sits almost an entire typical block back from Charlotte Street, we believe the depth of the structure and width are less important than height or breaking these into multiples. It was a design challenge that we feel is a win-win for us and neighbors, making it look like one structure. We know he has continued to contact the neighbors to engage them in this journey, as we respect that immensely. The structure is oriented like our home and pays respect to a grand oak tree that we desperately would love him to keep. The orientation speaks not only to our home with its close attention to the location of the cupola and garage doors. There is a strong argument in the way we created access through the property, creating more of a whole versus sites that look like house behind house with no respect to history. As for materials, we are excited about brick and the color palette he is considering. We know that our house representing wood siding for an important historic reason. The builder, like our family, owned a lumber business. The base of our home is stucco with brick piers. The new wall that divides our property with Mr. Hughley's is lime stucco with a great brick cap that will tie an anchor with the proposed brick carriage style house at the rear of the property. We are aware of many of the Charleston examples of where front houses are wood siding and carriage houses or other structures are brick. Albert Simon's home at 8 South Battery, 60 Montague Street are some of our favorites. The most important part of this for us as supporters of the American College of the Building Arts was the history of this property, starting with ownership from carpenters, lumber merchants, stone merchants, architects, and now an opportunity to show tastefully all the trades taught in one site that the students, graduates, and faculty can leave their mark. It will be a great opportunity, it will be a great property that we can look forward to opening up each of the structures to benefit the education of craftsmanship. We share that with John Paul, and we are excited about being part of this project, where good building practices and sustainable design meets a historic storyline that it can and will be told in the Garden District of Charleston, in a place we have quickly grown to love as our new home. Thank you for your time and look forward to seeing the brick carriage house anchor us to the north. Next, we have an email from Barbara Julius to John Paul Hughley. dated February 23rd, 2021. My husband, Dr. Alberto Santos, and I, Barbara Julius, live next door to 42 Charlotte Street. We have lived in the historic Houston house since 1986. We have met John Paul to go over his proposed plans and are in support of the structure. Given that it would have been possible for several small pod homes to be scattered around the property, his tasteful project is a better solution. I would like to add that the work that has taken place under John Paul's direction has been first rate. He cares about the small details in terms of the big picture. I've had a bird's eye view from my kitchen sink. Additionally, he cares about the neighbors. He seems to work with consensus and is available to support various issues others might have. Maybe that's not relevant in this particular matter to the board, but it means everything to us, his neighbors to the west. Next, we have an email from Judy Murphy to John Paul Hughley, dated February 22nd, 2021. John Paul, thanks so much for meeting with us and explaining in details what your plans are for the back property next door. The plans are well thought out and researched, and as a neighbor, I appreciate that. I also thank you for your consideration in telling us your timetable, what to expect as far as construction goes, etc. I could not have hoped for a better neighbor. Next, we have an email from Carol Luongo to John Hughley. John, thank you for inviting me to see and share all the proposed plans you have for the carriage house and conservatory at 4042 Charlotte Street. As a new resident just next door at 44 Charlotte Street, I plan on being here long term. I came to live in Charleston because I was drawn to its historic charm and beauty. After meeting with you and hearing your plans, I feel assured that you have the best interest of our neighborhood in mind, as well as your own, since you consider this to be your home too. The drawings you've shown me of the proposed building in regards to scale, mass, and orientation, I believe to be in keeping with the neighborhood, and once completed will serve to blend and complement the surrounding homes. Thank you. Another email from Gordon Smith to John Paul Hughley. John Paul, this is from your neighbor, Gordon. Hey, thanks for showing me your plans. Love the layout of the lot and the design. It'll be a nice addition to the neighborhood. Look forward to seeing it finished. Next, we have an email from Barbara Nee Wilson, dated February 21st, 2021. Hi, John Paul. We have received and reviewed your plans. Speaking as your immediate neighbor with a direct view of your new home, we approve of your plan and wish you luck moving forward. Next, we have an email from Susan Dunn, dated February 24th, 2021. Dear John Paul, my house, 37 Charlotte Street, is directly across from 4042 Charlotte Street. My sight line runs right down the 4042 driveway. I have lived here since 1977. I have carefully reviewed the plans and explanations that you shared with me for the proposed construction in the space behind 40 Charlotte Street. I find your plans lovely. I support them wholeheartedly. My house is a triplex that was built around 1914. I support the duplex design because it is attractive and harmonizes well with a historic home at 30 Charlotte Street. I also know from experience that multifamily structures can provide a desirable option for seniors and people with small children. The horizontal orientation echoes the front house, saves the beautiful oak, and fits well into such a wide lot. Please feel free to share my comments with the city of Charleston. I can be reached by cell phone at cell phone number, all my best, Susan Dunn. Next, we have an email from Denny and Margaret O'Brien, dated February 24th, 2021. John Paul, we really like your design and plan for 42 Charlotte. We are especially excited to see a proposed new building that is the appropriate size and scale for both the lot and the house in front of it. We have been really disappointed and literally cringe every time we walk by one of the houses in the neighborhood that has been allowed to add tiny, ugly structures in the rear yard. The plans presented to the neighborhood association definitely did not make clear how small and unattractive they would be. We are so glad also to see that your design looks as though it could be a building from the time period of the house, especially with it facing the street. I don't know if you know that the older Sanborn map shows orientation of back buildings facing the street on both Stange's and our property, 34 and 36 Chapel, but labeled 36 and 38 back then. We recently toured 5 East Battery, which also has a side lot like the one at 40 Chapel and has a similar but taller outbuilding across the back property line. We know your Chapel Street neighbors appreciate that you are not proposing to build your new building on the property line. You know we are longtime supporters of the traditional building arts and appreciate owners planning to use the graduate skills and applying traditional techniques to new construction. At a time when Charleston seems to have been handed over to developers with little interest in making new buildings fit their environment, We appreciate that your proposed structure is appropriate to our neighborhood and its history. We look forward to seeing your new home rising in the near future. Next, we have an email from Martin Grimling, dated February 24th, 2021. John Paul, thank you for sharing your vision for the property with us. This is a very promising design, which I look forward to seeing developed in more detail. I think your proposed building will be a complement to the neighborhood and to the larger house at 40 Charlotte Street in particular. The scale and mass of the building is appropriate, and the architectural expression is charming and restrained. Sadly, Masick Ragboro has lost a great many of its kitchen houses, carriage houses, and other ancillary structures over the years and centuries. And the buildings which have sometimes replaced them have often left something to be desired. Your project will be a step forward in mending the state of affairs, and I entirely support your application for conceptual approval at the BAR. Next, we have an email from Michelle Say, dated February 21st, 2021. I am in full support of the 4042 Charlotte Street proposal by John Paul Hughley. I respect and admire John Paul's commitment to the building arts, and am confident the addition will be a positive asset for the Garden District. 21 Charlotte Street has been my home for 20 years, and I am in full support of John's project. Best regards. Next, we have an email from Ian Walker, dated February 21st, 2021. Hey, John Paul, I like the concept overall, the materials choice and positioning on the lot. I feel you are right in thinking to add traditional style dormers to the roof, as we spoke of the other day. For one, it will bring light to the second floor, and two, it will break up what is a rather large roof that seems to dominate the look of the house. Not sure I understand the interior layout fully, but then that is not for this BAR meeting to decide. I'm sure you've thought it through though. I wish you luck with it, and let me know if you want to discuss it further. Always happy to help. I sent it to Inga in Holland, so perhaps you'll hear from her as well. And also from Ian Walker on February 22nd, 2021. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say that I own 33 Charlotte across the street, so and in the hood. Next, we have an email from Todd Magro, dated February 21st, 2021. John Paul, I have walked the property and reviewed the proposed designs for 42 Charlotte, and I am in favor of the proposed layout and general architectural direction. What is proposed is a thoughtful use of this unique property that will add to the historic fabric of this beautiful neighborhood. I am looking forward to future updates on the design's refinement and the building's construction. Thank you for engaging the neighborhood in a thoughtful way. Next is an email from Johnny Grosso, dated February 21st, 2021. Hi, John Paul. Congratulations on selling the house. Appreciate you sharing it. Jen and I think your design looks great, and we fully support your plan. We think it will be an awesome addition to the neighborhood. Happy to help in any way. Good luck with everything. Next is an email from Barbara Savarese, dated February 23rd, 2021. John Paul, this design is beautiful. You have really put a lot of thought and planning into incorporating it with the lot and in relation to the front house. Best wishes in getting this through the approval process. Next is an email from Lisa Flagman, dated February 24th, 2021. To BAR members, until 2.5 years ago, my husband and I lived at 32 Charlotte for 23 years. After reviewing the proposed plans for 4042 Charlotte Street being submitted by John Paul Hughley, I wholeheartedly urge the BAR to approve them as is. Over the years, and unlike much of the new construction in downtown Charleston in the past decade, I have been impressed by Mr. Hughley's work and his dedication to preserving the historical harmony and details that has been Charleston's architectural legacy and for what it has been known for. Next is an email from John Palmer, dated February 24th, 2021. John Paul, happy to see the property in the hands of people who have an appreciation for craftsmanship like Pete and Vicky do. And I think the building you're proposing will be a valuable addition to the neighborhood. Your attention to detail, hands-on approach to both design and construction, and eventual residents in this building make me comfortable knowing that the integrity of the finished product will be something we can all be proud of. Thanks for all of your research to make sure the building has roots and architectural precedents found in the Ragboro neighborhood of today and yesterday. Bravo, good work, neighbor. And last but not least, we have an email from David Gross, dated February 24th, 2021. Dear John Paul, Victoria and I have had a look at your proposed duplex behind 42 Charlotte Street and feel that what you envision is appropriate for the site, and we would like to support you in your efforts for this project. We have lived in the neighborhood for about 35 years, and as homeowners at 27 Charlotte Street have a vested interest in the best project possible for your site and have confidence that you will do a great job. Please feel free to forward our email to the City Approvals Board as you proceed.
Oh, okay.
Now we'll move on to city staff comments and recommendations. Kim?
We have a couple speakers. We have April Wood first. April, you have the floor whenever you're ready.
April Wood, Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has reviewed the application for conceptual approval for the new construction of a duplex at the rear of 42 Charlotte Street. And we thank the applicant for his time with us to help us understand the proposed project. We are impressed with the amount of research that the applicant has done to make his case for the orientation of the proposed dependency structure, and we are supportive of the proposed orientation of the building. We are also supportive of the applicant's mission to provide a building trades educational opportunity with the construction of this structure, and we applaud the applicant's dedication to traditional timber frame construction. While the size of the proposed structure is a little large, we feel that the large distance between the structure and the street makes the proposed structure subordinate. At this point, our primary concern with the project is the conservatory, which does not appear to complement the proposed structure. This portion needs additional study before it is ready for preliminary review. We recommend conceptual approval with the condition that the conservatory is restudied and potentially reduced in size to better complement the proposed structure. Thank you.
Thank you, April. We also have Erin Minigan. Erin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening. Erin Minigan with the Preservation Society of Charleston. First, the Preservation Society would like to thank the applicant for meeting with us and walking us through the project. We appreciate the thought that has gone into this proposal and outreach the applicant has done with various stakeholders and neighbors. We also appreciate the opportunity to visit the site yesterday to gain a better understanding of the siting of the proposed building and surrounding context. Given the depth of the lot and existing grand tree location, we are not opposed to the orientation of the building. However, we do have concerns with the current approach, primarily pertaining to the building subordination. Specifically, we feel the footprint is overly massive. The building should better reflect the types of dependencies seen in context, which have narrower footprints and are more compatibly scaled to the residential setting. We would also encourage restudy of several architectural details. First, given the prominence of the roof slope, we are not supportive of the skylight openings and would prefer to see more traditional openings incorporated, such as dormers. The cupola is also overscaled, and we do not find its off-center alignment nor the asymmetrical fenestration pattern below successful. Finally, the glass addition should be further separated from the main body of the building with a hyphen and would be better simplified by eliminating the lantern element on top and cantilevered balcony. We ask the board to defer this request to allow the applicant to restudy the height, scale, mass, and architectural direction of the proposal. Thank you.
And I believe we also have a Ferris Kaplan.
Mr. Kaplan, you're on mute.
Okay, how about now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. Let me see if I can get this video working. No. Okay. Well, what's the best thing to do? Should I read my letter, or do you have the letter to read, or the photographs I submitted?
We have read the letters that we have received, and unfortunately, we are not allowed to show any photographs from the public.
Okay, well, you've had my letter because I've gotten several emails from you since February 23rd.
If you have it in front of you, would you please read it?
Sure, I will.
Thank you.
Okay. Dear Bar, while you wanted to offer comments for the February 25th meeting, which of course kept being postponed, our house, 47 Chapel Street, is directly behind 42 Charlotte. Our backyard fence abuts their backyard fence. So we are opposed to this proposed development. When we bought our house 7 years ago, one of the top reasons was for the unobstructed wide view of the then Tom and Julie Baker's large yard to Charlotte Street. At the time, this was among the largest undeveloped grassy yards in downtown Charleston. Its centuries-old oak trees, bushes, and grass was pristine until now. And then I gave it a little history about the lots. So do we want a large 2-story building just 25 feet from our fence, towering over our yard? No. Do we want the noise and lights of 2 cars parking just 25 feet from our fence pointed towards our house? No. Can we stop it? Probably not. The trend seems to be giving approval to fill every inch of downtown with more buildings, no matter how unhistorical or cluttered. If this project is allowed to proceed, we have concerns about the flooding. With construction, cement, and development, where will the water drain that was previously absorbed by the natural ground? If an edifice must be erected, we do prefer one structure as opposed to several smaller ones that would bring more people, cars, and parking. We do prefer unobstructive skylights as opposed to dormers that would look directly into our bedroom and bathroom. John Paul has been a good neighbor, soliciting our feedback and keeping us informed on his project. He has the knowledge for building a quality dwelling. We just want to minimize the changes to the historic Mazik-Ragboro neighborhood and our view just 25 feet from our fence. And then I had photographs, which you have there, which I don't know why you can't show them. But I would just add that it's nice to know that all the neighbors on Charlotte are in support, but it's also nice to note that they are the farthest away from this building as possible. We are the closest to this building as possible. So I can see why they're in favor of it, because they can't really see it and it's not going to bother them. We are against it because it's 25 feet from us. We can see it and it's going to bother us. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Kim, do we have anyone else speaking from the public?
No, we don't, Lindsay.
All right, let's move on to city staff comments and recommendations. Kim?
Thank you. We have several comments. The most visible element of the proposal will be the roof, the westerly door, and the conservatory. Staff feel that the roof is overly broad and is highlighted by the unusual depth for a rear building. Appropriate dormers might mitigate the most prominent and most visible feature of the project. The building is not subordinate in mass and seems akin to a warehouse, which is concerning, and narrowing the depth might help the massing be more traditional for a secondary structure in the neighborhood, and again, help the roof massing. Restudy and balance the fenestration. The windows should be vertical in proportion rather than horizontal, and directed toward a residential scale rather than industrial. The westernmost door floats above the ground plane with no access and should become windows if there's no intention for access. The cupola is out of scale and should be restudied. The concept of a conservatory is interesting, especially considering something of the sort was once on the property. Restudy and narrow the connection to the element from the masonry building. The delicate detailing here will be more successful. Some whimsical or folly-like details could be added, but it should remain fairly simple and relatable to the utilitarian masonry building. Eliminate the brick entirely on the western end of the conservatory. So the staff's recommending deferral for massing and general architectural direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Mr. Hughley, did you have any response to the public comments or staff comments, or want to clarify anything?
Yeah, let me clarify a few things. Pretty much everything that Kim just went over with staff, we agree with. There's a planned charrette with the students on the 24th for windows, everything she said, cupola, conservatory. They really need to be, we've done a lot of research, but they need to come all together. Even the windows, the very last comment she had about windows to the north, we had been avoiding that. She's mentioned it a couple of times, but we think it's probably a good idea now. Dormers, we've already done a dormer study. I haven't really loved any of it yet, but we're going to come back with something. But let me state a couple of things just for Mr. Kaplan. He's been great. They don't want anything here. It's been very clear, but they've been very nice to work with me. I will make sure that any kind of course flooding never goes their way. We'll do everything we can to keep them. They're not the actual closest neighbor. 38C Charlotte Street is much closer than they are, but my impact's going to affect everybody. I mean, I know that. I'm in the building world, so I want them to have my phone numbers and be able to comment. The most important point that needs to be made is we have down, Kim, can you go back to the middle photograph, or you remember seeing it, where it is appropriate for buildings this shape and size. So, I mean, we know historically, we did our research, we have the studies of buildings in our neighborhood. This is, Christina Butler calls this in her writings, the industrial neighborhood. This is where the craftsmen lived, the working class. And buildings in the back weren't the little thin carriage houses of 26 feet. I mean, although they were there were plenty of, I wouldn't call them warehouses. They're called wagon sheds, coach houses. So the depth and the shape that we have scaled it all the way down to and kept 2 units inside is absolutely historically appropriate. I can show you in tons of studies. So I know that's right historically. Subordinate, you know, I'm a matrix guy, so I really want to know that it's less than in height and footprint. And I've worked with Kim on that topic. But what I've learned from architects here locally is subordinate may not just mean less than in square feet, for example, or height. We got those met. What it may mean is it appropriate for that? And I think that's where this coach house actually is successful, because it's not trying to be anything other than a building to the back, and it's not trying to read as a duplex. I don't want that. The way I'm going to live in it and entertain in it, it's 2 single men living in the property. We'll have A and B, and we have a common area to show off the building art. So if it starts to go smaller and I can't get 2 to do it, I've got to go in a format of different buildings back there, which we honestly haven't studied. We're welcome to do that if that's the direction of this board. We just want clarity tonight. We've done too much work over the last year, and we have too many charrettes set up to start detailing windows and stuff, and I don't want to waste people's time and money. So that's all I'd ask from the board, is give me clear direction. And all of the 6 things she just mentioned, the answer is yes. We will restudy, not only restudy all those, we're glad to restudy all those.
Thank you, Mr. Hughley. Let's open it up for board discussion and a vote.
This is Bill. I'll go ahead and start. I would say, and I appreciate that last comment from Mr. Hughley. I do agree with the comments of staff. I do think that they're all definitely valid and worthy of that restudy process. I guess one other point, seeing elements on this elevation right here, for example, it appears those are earthquake bolts or some replication of earthquake bolts. I'm starting to get a little concerned about differentiating this building historically, because I know the talent of the people that are going to be building this, and it inevitably could give a sense of false history to some point. I want to make sure that, and potentially in looking at the detailing, that there's at least obvious indicators that it's, you know, built of this time, just to conform with our Secretary of Interior standards, you know, guideline. All in all, as far as the single unit versus multiple units, I agree that is a better approach. So I would just say that I agree with staff's comments and recommendation, and then just that other side comment from me about making sure that it is speaks of its time and doesn't, you know, go too far to replicating something, because I think with the potential talent involved in this, it could easily read as something from another time.
This is Julia. I'll add to that. You know, of course, I think we all respect and support the idea of hands-on education being incorporated into this project. And I have zero issue with the perpendicular orientation of this structure on the lot. I recognize it's an exceptional deep lot and you've sort of cordoned off this separate space back there. So that makes sense to me, and I have no objection to it reading as one structure. I think that's a great idea as well. But, you know, I have trouble with sort of the odd conjectural nature of the architectural direction. And I have, I guess, a philosophical problem with attempting to replicate a building type and a building use that is obsolete. I mean, it's not a coach house. It's not an industrial building. It's 2 dwellings is what you're going for. And I'm sure that there is a way to accomplish what you want to accomplish and to incorporate a lot of fine craftsmanship. But I think it just needs to somehow marry up with the fact that it's 2021 and these are 2 dwellings, and I just feel like it should be a more honest expression of that. And I would suggest possibly, you know, breaking down the depth of the footprint, because again, all of your precedents do have narrower footprints, which allow for, you know, a normal 2-story facade and some more logical fenestration. So if you did go with a narrower footprint, I think it would be completely fine to sort of extrude a secondary volume at the rear to the north and achieve the same, you know, square footage that you're getting here in a more recognizable kind of logical form. So I think that's all I've got. And again, I mean, I absolutely appreciate what you're trying to do with the school, and clearly you have good neighbor relations, which is very valuable too. So I'm confident this will end up being successful. But at this point, I'm pretty much aligned with staff.
Fillmore Wilson here. I'm aligned with staff's comments as well, and most of my fellow board members' comments so far. I agree with Bill that that if the pattress plates are not functional, they shouldn't be there. There shouldn't be I hesitate to use the word fake, but there shouldn't be fake elements on the structure that wouldn't be there naturally. I don't have a lot of problem with the basic building, and I know that the construction techniques will be excellent. I don't have a problem with the building looking traditional, because I think in final form, if there are no sort of arbitrary, unnecessary elements on the building, that it will be distinguishable as a modern structure. I agree with staff comments about the roof. I agree with Julia's comments about the idea that perhaps there's a better way to reduce the mass of that building with some other elements. I think the conservatory is an interesting idea, but I think as it's pictured here in this elevation, it needs to be restudied because it seems to be unrelated to the main structure. And so I am in accordance with staff's comments and recommendations.
Glenn Gardner, I don't have, frankly, a whole lot to add because I think nearly all of my notes have already been gone over by fellow board members. I will just mention a couple quick things, and I am really on board with everything that's been said. Just a few points that I had made. I think this building as drawn, which I think the comments that have been made are probably leading toward a different view of what may be back here. But to me, this building is begging to be grounded and shouldn't have the base that is shown. If those large kind of carriage looking doors were to be included, I think those should open up at ground level. It shouldn't feel like a loading dock against this building. And I think that begins to make this building feel very, very industrial. And commercial by these carriage doors being up in the air. Secondly, I think the cupola really makes this overly prominent as a secondary building in the back. I did go by, looked at the flagging on site, and I think the height of the cupola really would potentially be very prominent from the street, and I think that should be studied very, very carefully. And then finally, I agree completely with Fillmore. I have felt like the conservatory element, especially the second story, and I think there's a balcony on there. I think that is fighting with the other building, and it reads as two separate architectural thoughts happening. So I think it would be intriguing to perhaps disengage or pull away a one-story element of a conservatory thought that was disengaged from the building, but not fighting with the building, or not competing with the building, I guess is more of my comment. And otherwise, I will add that, kind of as a few other people have said, based on the lot, based on some of the studies, even though the Sanborns don't show anything ever having, to my knowledge, been back there at all, I am not opposed to the orientation of a building, but I do think the footprint is a little too, perhaps too deep on this. But the left-right orientation, I think I can be okay with.
Thank you.
So I'm trying to figure out how we might distill everything into a motion. I think feels like deferral is the way to go, and I think, you know, staff's recommendation is on target. Deferral for massing and general architectural design. In terms of comments, I'd like to know what other board members think. A number of staff's comments sort of imply that, you know, that this design is close to acceptable, and I'm not sure, you know, I'm not sure if we want to give that impression or not. I'm not sure. So what do you guys think?
Julia Fillmore here. I'm not opposed to sort of the general direction of the design, and I do agree with virtually all of staff's comments. I think they've hit on most of what's been brought up, and so I'm struggling a little bit with whether it's general architectural direction or it's massing and detailing. As Glenn said, I'm not opposed to the conservatory, but I think it needs a lot of work for architectural direction. And I think that Glenn's point about, I think if the building is going to stay in this style, the main building in this style, I wholeheartedly agree with Glenn that it needs to be grounded. The doors being elevated off grade like that do give it a very industrial. And so I don't know whether we want to try to make some staff comments along with some board comments along with staff comments, or I think it's a difficult motion to make.
I guess I'm looking through, and there are definitely a fair amount of board comments. I'm envisioning a motion for deferral, but for consideration of those staff comments and board comments.
Yeah, I'm going back to the fact that John Paul has asked for some guidance rather than just a sort of a blanket deferral in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe we owe that.
I think we just have to be careful with um, if we're, I don't know, I think some of the comments that have been made lead to a different building or a very different version of what we're looking at. And I think that's hard, Fillmore, truthfully.
I agree. I think it's very difficult. And we don't want, I mean, just, you know, our
I don't
board should
wanna
not
lead-
be designing the building. We shouldn't be
Yeah.
designing the building.
Yeah, and well, I don't want to lead the applicant down the wrong path. I mean, he's been very clear about how much planning has to be done and involvement. And I think there are some very major things that have to be checked off here before we risk him losing a lot of effort and time. I want to be respectful of that.
Yes.
And I'm with you, Gwen. I'm looking at just my notes on the various comments that were made, and they are a mix of comments to this design. You know, making sure it's differentiated historically, and you know, the certain elements, making sure that they're usable elements, they're not fake elements, and you know, having this actually do ground level. And then there's an equal amount of comments that are talking about the depth and sort of separating the conservatory element. And Julia made a comment about, and maybe this is in line with the current design, but sort of marrying what this looks like now, which is sort of an industrial carriage house, versus what the actual use is, which is residential. So it sort of seems split down the middle, and I'm not being helpful right now.
No, you are. And you know, I'll be honest with you. I don't have any doubt that the applicant and his team can successfully do what Bill was mentioned about making sure that it's not you know, a false 1850 building. I think they can very creatively make that happen. I mean, to me, that part of that is more of a detail refinement that we would see at preliminary and final level. I mean, that I think, Bill, you're talking about the Paxer's plates, you're talking about the brackets, you're just talking about detailing, right? And I think you can still build in a traditional manner without making something falsely look 150 years old. I think that is all careful detailing that they can handle. I guess a lot of what I'm wanting to be careful of is, you know, are we talking about sort of pulling this conservatory off? Is it a story too tall? If you lower this building to the ground, does that affect the way they're building the building? I just want to be careful that we guide them, or that we don't, well, more so don't misguide them.
Glenn, I appreciate what you said, and actually one of your comments earlier. So I guess what I was saying at the beginning was I believe that staff recommendations are all straightforward, and I believe Mr. Hughley's already acknowledged that he accepts the merit of those comments as well for that part of the restudy. And then my only other point was, as you just said, that make sure that there's not an indication of sort of a false sense of history. And that does include the detailed elements, but it also includes the sort of warehouse or industrial theme of the building. That as much is sort of gives a sense of a building that historically was something else and then has been repurposed into residential use. So if it's being built as residential use, then it should read as such to whatever degree. And that's probably mainly due to the fenestration and other elements like that. Yeah, these raised doors, elements like that are very distractive. It almost looks like a wagon could back up to that door and load in, you know, which again, it creates a nice story, but it's not really a true story. So I guess that's sort of the premise of what I was trying to get at with just that comment, just to make sure that we're not sort of creating a false sense of history here, that it's true to its era, but it can be detailed. Again, the material palette I think is going to be excellent. I believe the execution will be excellent, and I believe there are ways that it can be done to obviously indicate that it's built in this time. But most of my comments were, or most of my reflection was around staff's comments, which I think really do carry most of what my concerns were.
Honestly, the more I think about it, and again, I'm excited about the possibilities for craftsmanship and what this can be, but in my view, we almost need to deny this particular concept because I feel like it needs so much attention and alteration, literally from the bottom up. And I don't know how to fashion a motion for deferral that would address all the issues that I think are really important here to get it right and to take advantage of this opportunity to build something beautiful and traditional that is also honest about what it is.
Well, I mean, I guess that's where, you know, we struggle as a board a lot of times with what is the difference between a denial as submitted and a deferral. And a lot of times they're really almost the same thing. I
don't want to misspeak, but I believe a denial may extend the time when they can reapply. So a deferral, they may be able to submit something at the next meeting. Kim or Tori, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that's the practical effect of a denial. Is it just typically it extends the time period after which they can reapply.
Unless it's a different design, then they can come back as soon as they want, right?
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Julia. I'm sorry.
I'm back to Julia's comments. I agree that the building, you know, it's a 21st century building. I still do not have a problem with the basic form of the building, along with staff comments. I think that the basic form of the building in massing and the cupola and the conservatory and all those things need to be worked on, and fenestration. But I think having it's going to be built with traditional craftsmanship, and so I don't have a problem with the traditional form. It does need to be, I think it needs to be detailed to be what it is, as opposed to pretending it's something that it's not. I agree with that, but I think you can achieve that with traditional craftsmanship and traditional form. I do think in that sense it comes down to the detailing and the fenestration. And the basic form, I don't have a problem. I certainly don't have a problem with the orientation. I think that's been shown to be acceptable. And so, but I think it does need a lot of work on the detailing and the elements like the cupola and the conservatory and the relationship of the doors, possibly even, you know, the shape and style of the doors, and particularly the relationship of the doors to the building and what they're supposed to be. Are they carriage doors, or are they, you know, I'm not sure I'm on board with them being fake carriage doors, because I think it's not an appropriate element. But I think the fenestration, particularly on that south elevation, needs to be restudied as well. So the basic form of the building, with the main building, I don't have a problem with.
Fillmore, that includes the unusual depth of it and the massive roof form. You're fine with that?
I think that the massing could be worked on, and I think that your comments, I think there are appropriate ways to deal with the loss of space that allows that building, the massing of that building to come down.
Could I ask you to flip over to the plan, please? Just the dimension floor plan. So it's 37 feet deep, is that right?
It is
38 feet deep.
11 and a half. So it's 38 feet deep. I've got to blow up here on my split screen.
Make sure to tell the students about masonry coursing.
Just to add, going back to the difference between a denial and a deferral, I'm actually not seeing that a deferral from this particular, a denial from this particular board places any sort of time limitation on when an application can be refiled. So perhaps you're right, Glenn, that difficulty between the difference of a denial and a deferral.
Yeah.
I would say I think staff's comments are well worded, and I believe do encompass what would have been my concern. So I'm more inclined to support the recommendation as well. And I believe that comments that we've all made have been taken into account. So it's okay. I guess I'll go ahead and float a motion if you guys are ready. I'll make a motion for deferral of the application with staff's comments noted and a board comment to assure that the future proposals indicate a building detailed to its proper period.
All right. We have a motion on the floor for a deferral of the application with staff comments noted and a board comment that any future proposal, it indicates the building to its proper period.
Yes, Lindsay, I'll just say detailing to its proper period being current, rather than falsified historical details.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Fillmore here. I'll second it.
Thank you, Fillmore. I'll put it to a vote. Glenn?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Nay, opposed.
Phil?
Yay in favor.
Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes with the majority and the motion passes with 4 votes for and 1 vote against. Moving on to agenda item number 6, 17.5 Hanover Street. Kim, if you would give an introduction.
Bear with me for just a moment, please. All right. Agenda item number 6, 17.5 Hanover Street. It's requesting conceptual approval for modifications and renovations. The building's a category 4 in the East Side neighborhood. It was built 1913 and it's in the old city district. Just for some context, here's the property that we're talking about just north of Amherst Street on the west side. Here's some existing site photos. And just to the right is the sister house. There they are together. This is looking south and looking north. These are the Sanborn maps from 1902 and 1944. You can see the house was built sometime during that period. There was a mention in the News and Courier in 1915 for a bathroom addition from the owner, Ava McCarty. Now, the only other time Ava McCarty was mentioned was with an address that wasn't specified on Hanover Street, which is for the construction of a new 2-story house in 1902. So, trying to really zone in on the age, we could say it was from 1902, but we can find that out if you just look at the city directories a little bit more, but I digress. We have Mr. Gettings. You have the floor whenever you're ready to speak.
Yes, hello. Good afternoon. I appreciate hearing the board hearing our application. The drawings I submitted, I imagine you could start with C1. The existing building was built in 1913 as a Charleston single house. That was interesting to learn about the 1915 bathroom addition. I didn't realize that, but I have some other additions I will talk about here in a moment. The project was, the building was purchased by the owners, the Loudons, and Miss Robin Loudons is scheduled to speak also after I finish if possible. In the 1950s, they purchased the house, and it was a single family residence. It was in its original rectangular shape, as I thought at the time, but there may have been a bathroom added, as you stated, Kim. The front porch and the house itself was used to raise a family from the 50s, and then in the mid 70s, there was an addition to the house. Over the left veranda, a bathroom was added, and an extension also was added to widen the middle room in the house. The extension was structurally non-conforming today with columns, 4x4 columns, extending down through the lower veranda into the foundation. Also at that time, the second floor, the front porch was enclosed to become a bedroom. On A2.1, you can see where they closed in the second floor porch and added the large picture window that's there. I think a couple more, A2. Okay, that's the plan view, yes. But here, right there, the second floor, and they added the picture window and the 2 side windows. They also, at the same time, they did a 12-foot addition, was added to the rear of the house to form a new kitchen and laundry room and a half bath. So with that being our challenge, the project is part of the City of Charleston Community Development and Affordable Housing project. The goal is, as I saw it as an architect, is to take what had become a jigsaw puzzle and make it whole again as a Charleston house, single house, appearing as a single house as much as possible. Several steps were taken to do that. we propose to restore the front elevation and second floor porch, restoring it, respecting the characteristics of a typical Charleston single house. We have also removed the bathroom that was over the veranda and incorporated a staircase on the left side to access the second floor unit. The house is being converted from a single family unit to a two unit home. So the staircase was incorporated and reconstructed this area to be more appropriate to a Charleston style house. The rear addition that we're proposing is needed to create a second bedroom for each level of the house. So each will have its each unit would have two bedrooms, 2 baths. We've had 2 working meetings with Ms. Havlin where comments were incorporated to restore elements to improve the house characteristics. Overall, the house, we feel like through working with her in those meetings, a lot was accomplished. Some of the comments were to improve the roof pitch. It appeared to be lower than existing, and we corrected that. The rear roof was shown to be offset from the front roof. It was the rear addition at one time was being shown taller than the main house. We brought it down to keep the same ridge line going on back. We were asked to use more consistent overhangs of 10 inches. We complied. We made columns thinner and to be more typical and consistent with the adjacent house, the sister house that's next door. And we replaced the railings with the more traditional period type railing on the porch and veranda. I noticed a typo. I noticed we missed a note where the railings are to be wood, treated wood and not stainless steel. So please note that correction. The corners of the second floor porch needed to be congruent with a more traditional offset, inset off of the house, and we complied with that also. Overall, through this, the house characteristics I feel are restored as best we can to be much more like it was in its original build. The building lines are cleaner, reflecting back to their original heritage. As far as support for the structure, the project had been supported during the zoning process by Ms. Gamble, the director of the East Side Community Development Corp. Other supporters include Mrs. Deborah Blue, Mr. Tanny Glover, and Mr. Vernon Drayton. We sincerely hope our work has created a better design, and we seek the board's approval. With that, I'd like to ask if Mrs. Loudons is available to say anything. Maybe we lost her.
Am I unmuted?
Oh, there you are. Very good.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. Thank you all for your time and efforts. But my husband and I, this has always been a family home. When we got married, we moved into this home and stayed in this home for 12 years until we outgrew it with children. So we wanted to stay within our family for our children's heritage. However, we would also like for it to be a useful part of the community, allowing for someone to have a place to stay. I love the idea that we're maintaining the Charleston feel of the house, because that's what I loved about it. It is my husband's family home, but I love the Charleston feel of the structure. So that all said, I just hope we can get your approval to go forward, because I think it will serve someone with a home, a place to live within the community. Thank you.
Lindsay, you're muted.
I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Do we have any board questions?
Oh, you know, did we see Sanborn's? Kim, I'm sorry, you showed Sanborn's, right?
Mhm.
I have a couple of them. Whoop. 1902 on the left that shows different buildings, and 1944 on the right, which is the same as the 51s and 55s.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board questions? All right, let's move on to public comment. It looks like we have one from Historic Charleston Foundation. Is April?
Hello, this is April from Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has reviewed the application for conceptual approval for modifications and renovations at 17.5 Hanover Street. We are in support of this application with one modification. We recommend replacing the proposed trellis roof on the second floor front porch with a traditional roof. This adjustment will be more sympathetic to the character of the historic house. We understand that this is a project supported by the city to provide affordable housing. We recommend approval of the application with this change. Thank you.
Kim, I don't see any other public comment. Do we have anyone speaking?
We have Aaron Minigan. Let's see. I'm here.
Hi, thanks, Kim. I'm here.
Thank you.
Erin Minigan with the Preservation Society of Charleston. This building has suffered many insensitive alterations over time, and the Preservation Society is very encouraged by this proposal for a much needed renovation of the building, and especially renovation as affordable housing. While we see many positive steps being taken to improve the character of the building, we might suggest reevaluating some of the approach to be more sensitive from a preservation standpoint. The Sanborn maps indicate this house historically had a typical single house form with a south-facing side piazza, and we encourage taking any measure possible to restore the original form. Second, opening up the later added front porch is positive. However, the trellis form on the second story is unusual and conjectural, and we suggest restudying the porch with a more traditional design, drawing from contextual neighborhood examples. In addition to the rear may be appropriate, but we suggest better following the Secretary of Interior standards for new additions, and for it to be differentiated, subordinated, and hyphenated from the historic building, rather than continue back in the same wall planes and roof line. Finally, the proposed materials should be revisited to be compatible with the historic construction of the house. PVC and other synthetic materials are not appropriate for use on the historic building. Again, we are very supportive of the project, and with further study of the points above, we look forward to seeing it progress positively through the design review process. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. And Kim, do we have anyone else? Kim, you're muted.
That's all we have for public comment, Lindsay. Thank you.
All right, then I'll turn it over to you for staff comments and recommendations.
We just have a few comments. The material palette should eliminate vinyl siding and PVC trim, which is not permitted in the old city district. and should be wood clapboard, which is more appropriate for the historic. The new addition should be differentiated with a hyphen or change in plane, which would delineate the historic portion from the new. The front porch should incorporate 2 additional columns on the second floor porch, on the front porch, and 1 more on the ground floor to further balance the porch and give it a more vertical proportion. And this relates to the rhythm of the bays on the piazza as well. Reduce the scale of the columns and construct the entire balustrade in wood. Use a traditional hipped roof on the front porch instead of the trellis element, and retain as much of the historic rhythm of the openings along the piazza as possible. The staff's recommending conceptual approval with staff comments noted.
Thank you, Kim. Mr. Gettings or Ms. Lowndes, did you have any, did you want to have any clarification that you wanted or any response to specifically the public comments that were made or the staff comments?
This is Byron Gettings. No real objection to the comments. Will they be provided to me in writing? I wasn't able to, get all of that in that a fire hose of comments. Is that something do you?
Sorry about that. We will we'll be posting staff comments on the website, and I'll go ahead and send you the link as well, Mr. Gibbons.
Okay. And there was a comment regarding the south elevation needing to be more in tune to a typical Charleston house. Can that be elaborated? Can you elaborate on that comment a little more, because I don't quite see what else we can do. Maybe there's something missing that you're wanting to see that I'm not seeing. That's what I'm wondering.
Sorry, can you ask which comment would you like me to elaborate on?
This was related to the fenestration of the south elevation needing to be more like a typical traditional Charleston house. Did I misread or misunderstand something?
So I think I think you might be referring to the comment where I wanted, I thought it would be best if you retained the historic openings, which might be this one, and these 2.
Wait a minute,
So,
you've got
your screen's not shared anymore.
Yeah.
Can you see it now?
Yes. Now we're there. Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So these openings, at least this one and this one, seem to be
That's the thing. That's the existing elevation.
Yes.
Okay.
Seem to be 2 of the original openings, and probably this door location. And if so, staff would like to see these openings retained, if possible.
Well, are you aware they're actually 4x4 columns that you're seeing coming down from the second floor that's interrupting that plane? Those are the columns that are in some of the photos. The fence, the wall, the main south wall there on the building is a single plane. There is no offset in the wall plane on the existing, except for there you go. You can see now on the existing plan, it's a straight wall. And I tried to show those columns sitting to the left of your hand right there out on the porch. So
my question would be, are these openings historic?
Yes, they're original. Yes.
Okay. My comment was just referring to the fact that we would prefer to see them retained in their location. Thank you.
It might help if you flip back to the staff comment page. And Mr. Gettings, is that the only one you needed clarification on?
Yes, that one was real important too, because it lends to the livability of the unit. The width of the living room and kitchen then gets seriously compromised. But I have to go with it though. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Gettings.
Mhm, mhm.
Let's open it up for board discussion and a vote.
This is Julia. I'm just staring at that part of the plan. I'm thinking about the comment that he was asking about. And it looks like that whole wall where those possibly original openings are, has been shifted and
Correct.
would be removed in this plan.
Mhm.
And yeah, okay. I mean, generally, I think that staff has got it pretty thoroughly figured out. And of course, I am supportive of affordable housing. And I do, yeah, I think that having a roof over that upper porch will just be a lot more compatible with the historic district.
Okay.
And I guess I'm pretty ambivalent about the loss of that piece of wall in the proposed living area on the first floor, but curious if anybody else feels strongly.
Which piece of wall are you referring to, Julia?
It's where Kim was saying that she suspects those are historic openings, right? Where she's highlighting right now. And
Yeah.
that wall is actually removed in the proposed plan. It shifts to the left.
Yeah, I see that. Okay.
Fillmore here. I don't really have anything to add. I'm in agreement with staff comments, and looking at that first floor plan, retaining those windows would dramatically modify the existing design. So I'm not quite sure how you do that. Except for that, I am in agreement with staff.
This is Lindsay. I'm sort of ambivalent about that, losing that window as well.
On stage, trying to listen to their comments. Excuse
Okay.
me.
I will, I'm just gonna make a motion if I can, for conceptual approval with staff comments noted. And I think that comment number 6 is fine. It says retain as much as possible. I think it's fine to leave that in there. So that's my motion.
All right. Thank you, Julia. We have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with staff comments noted. Do I have a second?
Second, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn. We'll put it to a vote. Fillmore?
Okay.
Yay in favor.
There.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor.
Glenn?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Moving on to agenda item number 7, 1 Atlantic Street. Kim?
You're on mute, Kim.
Bear with me for just a moment. Okay. Whoa. Zoom in once, throw it off to the agenda. Number 7 is 1 Atlantic Street, requesting replacement of a wooden gate at the driveway. The building's a category 2 in the Charlestown neighborhood. Was built in 1830 in the old and historic district. Just to orient you with the property, here it is near the corner of East Bay Street. And some existing site photos. Here's the gate in question, with the house on the right. This is looking west on Atlantic. And that's all you get. So I have, let's see who's here. We have Madden Jones. You have the floor whenever you're ready to speak.
Mr. Jones, you're on mute.
Miss Jones,
Excuse
can
me.
you all hear me now?
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Hold on. Okay. The gate is currently in disrepair. We'd like to replace it. We would like to replace it based off of the designs at 26 Church Street, which is a category 3 with an easement that was included in our application. We will not be using these sloped wings, but just the thinner boards and with none of the diagonal bracing. The pedestrian gate at 7 Meeting, although not included in this application, is a category 1 and has a similar style with the V-groove boards and horizontal bracing. So that's our application.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Do we have any board questions?
Will that sort of beam above the doors, that will remain, correct?
Yes, correct.
Have you identified the hardware for the gate?
We have not. There is existing hardware that we plan on repairing or replacing in kind. Bruce Dingler is doing the craft on that.
Any other board questions?
I don't really have a question. Could I just ask, I'm only on one screen today, I'm sorry. Could we go to the back to the elevation of the proposed, the black and white? That's right, thank you.
And we're happy to accept any sort of comments. We do not want the diagonal bracing is our wish.
Yeah, I guess my only question would be with regard to the depth or the thickness of the gate. So is the vertical beaded, is that, I'm trying to tell if that sort of mortised into the frame. I just
correct, mortised into the frame. I think if you scroll down one more, they do have a section of it. There we go.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there are no other board questions, we'll move on to public comment.
We don't have any public comment for this one, Lindsay.
All right, then on to you, Kim, for city staff comments and recommendations.
Originally, this came before staff for repair, which we were happy to do, but then they changed the design slightly. So it is required to come before you, but we still feel the design is appropriate as proposed. The construction of the door should be substantiated, however, as 1 3/4 inches seems flimsy and will be visible when it's open. So the staff's recommending final approval with these staff comments noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Ms. Jones, did you want any clarification from staff?
Nope, that seems reasonable.
All right, I'll open it up now for board discussion and a vote.
Glenn Gardner, I agree with staff comments. I think the look of what's proposed is appropriate, and it just needs to be substantial enough. Even with Sapele, which should not warp, I think it needs to just be made sure that it feels like an exterior door and not the thickness of an interior.
Okay, can I just make a motion for final approval with staff comments noted?
We have a motion on the floor for final approval with staff comments noted. Do I have a second?
Second, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn. I will now put it to a vote. Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor.
Glenn?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes with the majority and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving to agenda item 812 Franklin Street. Kim? Kim, you're muted, but I don't see you talking, so that may be purposeful.
Thanks. Just one moment. Okay. 12 Franklin Street's requesting conceptual approval for a new addition onto Carriage House at rear. The building's a category 2 in the Charlestown neighborhood and was built in 1850. It's in the Olden Historic District. And here's an aerial for your familiarization with the project. It is just south of Queen Street on the east side. And here's the existing site photo. And you can see the driveway and you can't really see the garage in question at the rear. This is looking north on Franklin. And nope, had it the other way. This is north and this is south on Franklin. And if Mr. Hannawalt wants to take it away from here, you have the floor.
Hello, and I appreciate everybody's efforts in considering this and working on this with us. My name is Rob Hannawalt. I'm representing Chris and Amy Searcy, the homeowners, and David Coxon, who's a really skilled architect. He's not able to be with us here. He lives and works in Washington, D.C. in Georgetown. So he did the drawings. I can't speak to them in first person, but you know, as a builder and a craftsman, I think they're really well done. I leave the architectural comments and evaluation obviously to you. We're really committed to doing a good job on this, using good materials, really low visibility from the street. We generally have the support of the neighbors, although we didn't do a letter writing campaign or anything like that. It's mostly about use for us. The homeowner works from home, and the primary residence doesn't have a good place for an office where he can do that privately. So we did a cabinets and finishes renovation inside the carriage house last year. And there was a bathroom that was pre-existing. It was in the center of the space. So it was like a 5x8, and it sort of precluded the use of the rest of the carriage house as a open spaced office. So that was removed with the hope and the intention of doing this bathroom addition on the right side. And, you know, he's in there working, but he has to take trips for the bathroom during his office day. So we're hoping to give him some relief from that. And it's not an existing, or it's not the original structure. We can tell from the age of materials that it's definitely been rebuilt a few times, or at least once. It's got modern plywood and block. The facade seems to be preserved from a little bit earlier, although we're not exactly sure how early, but I do think the architect, David, did a really nice job, kind of trying to follow the roof line and make sure we use that Dutch lap siding and picking up the octagon window. So that's really all I have. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hannawalt. Do we have any questions from the board at this time? All right, moving on to public comment.
Have just April Wood from HCF here.
This is April Wood from Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has an exterior easement at 12 Franklin Street. The existing carriage house is not historic, and the proposed addition is small and minimally visible from the street. HCF has reviewed and approved of the proposed alterations to its easement property, and we respectfully recommend approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, April. And Kim, that's it for public comment?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's move on to staff comments and recommendations.
Have a couple comments, if I can find it. Sorry. The proposal is very sensitive to the modern secondary structure of this Category 2 house and would be something staff would feel comfortable approving at the staff level had it not been for the architectural designations. Staff's recommending final approval. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Mr. Hannawalt, did you have any response to the comments from Mr. Charleston or staff?
Just appreciation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hannawalt. Let's open it up for board discussion and a vote.
I have a quick question for Kim. So remind me, the ordinance does not give staff the option to approve something like this. Is that correct? Just because
That's
the main
right.
house is Category
Only
2?
repairs without changes.
Okay, I have nothing to add. No problem with this.
This is Lindsay. I too have
This is Bill. I'll make a motion for final approval.
Second.
That was easy. So I've got a motion from Bill for final approval, a second by Julia, and I will put it to a vote. Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Glenn?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes with the majority and the motion passes unanimously.
Pretty sure that's the fastest you guys have ever approved anything.
Moving on to agenda item 9, 26 Queen Street. Kim, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. 26 Queen Street is requesting final approval for the new construction of wrought iron balcony at the second floor. Building is a Category 2 in the Charlestown neighborhood and was built in 1802 in the old and historic district. Just for a little familiarity with the project, it's between Church and Chalmers on the north side of the street. And there's a photo of it. And this is looking west and looking east. And if Ms. Lane wants to take it from here, you have the floor whenever you're ready to speak.
Ms. Lane, you are on mute.
Damn. Thank you. Thank you for hearing this. We've found some evidence that there was a balcony here before, and I'd like to show you that. But I'll point out on this drawing, well, I can do it later. Could we go to A101?
A101. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. The A's show the plan is, there we go. Okay, so on the first floor, we have no changes on the outside. So to A102, the second floor. There are 3 windows there, and the center window has a threshold on the inside, and we have found holes where there was a balcony on the outside. We are choosing to add a jib door as opposed to a triple hung because the neighbor next to us have a jib door and at 28 Queen, and then we do not have to replace the window. Okay, next would be 201. Yes. So the existing is on the left and the proposed is on the right. You can see that our balcony is smaller than the neighbors because we found the hole on the right-hand side and sized it to that. 202, please. This is the rear elevation. We added a balcony there and that got staff approval earlier, but it was just part of the package. 251, please. This is a blown up scale of the proposal for the Queen Street jib door and existing window and small balcony. C101, please. That's yes.
It's the other way.
Yeah. And Kim, thank you. I was going to apologize for these all being sideways. You got them all straight.
I thought you were deferring.
I was told they were sideways. They aren't at all. So thank you very much. This just shows that the balcony is on the property line on Queen Street. It's right at the bottom of the site plan. C102. This shows the zoning requirements and they're all non-conforming, but we've gotten approval for that. C103. Thank you. Right, these are balconies on Queen Street and with a close-up of the one next door. C104. Right, this is where, and I hope you can see it, on the upper right or left is where the two holes are found. One is in the center of the center window and one is under the right window. So we chose that to make the width of the balcony and we made it more narrow than the neighbor's balcony. It's 2.8 instead of 3 something. They're the holes right there. We couldn't find the left-hand hole, but it's been newly stuccoed over there. The other evidence on the third picture from the left is the threshold under the center window. The other windows do not have that threshold, which implies there was a door there. And the other evidence, if we can back out a little bit, is the trim on the center window was they tried to match the other windows, but it is not accurate. It's clearly not the same. And that's what the jumble of other photos are. And the other are structural that are done by Mike Hance, just to make sure it doesn't fall down. And I appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Do we have any board questions?
This is Julia, and I think I know the answer, but did you find any photographic evidence of the balcony, or do you have ideas about how old the current conditions are?
Thank you. I've hired Sarah Ficht to look into this with Preservation Consultings, and she could not find any photos for us, but it was in part because of COVID. But I couldn't find any either in my library. But the physical evidence is what we have. We also talked with Historic Charleston and the Preservation Society, and they are in support of this.
Thanks.
More Wilson, just out of curiosity, have you chosen who's making the balcony?
Jimmy Tupper is the contractor. I'm not sure who's actually fabricating it. I haven't asked. I've worked with several good fabricators, but I'm not sure what he's doing.
Thank you.
I have two questions. So Virginia, on the rear balcony, was there evidence there of a balcony, or was that just
No.
added?
That was just added and is not visible from the street.
Okay. And then on the front, so you have not removed any of that wood paneling or trim inside yet to see if the brickwork shows?
No, not yet. The evidence seemed substantial enough the way the trim was misfit and not matching, and the thresholds and that something was there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to public comment.
See, we don't have any public comments.
All right. And Kim, we'll move to city staff comments and a recommendation.
Yeah, we thought this proposal is very sensitively proposed and within historic context and is appropriate for approval. They've included all the details for final approval, so we're recommending final. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Ms. Lane, did you have anything to you wanted to respond to or wanted clarification on based on staff's comments?
No, thank you. Very grateful.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. All right, I'll open it up for board discussion and a vote.
I guess, Glenn Gardner, I guess my comment would be based on evidence that there had been a door there. My understanding has always been that the balcony to the west was added much later, and that's why that building has a balcony and the others don't. And if there is evidence that there was a jib door or a triple hung window there, I would certainly be supportive of recreating a balcony there. But I personally, I mean, this is a category 2. I don't think you can cut a hole in the front of a category 2 house without evidence that there was one previously there. So I would ask for a site visit to determine that.
Fillmore Wilson, Glenn stated almost exactly what I was going to state. I think there is some evidence with the threshold that there might have been a balcony here, but I think beyond that, it is speculative. And I'm with Glenn. I think a site visit to try to understand the conditions more appropriately would be in order.
Are you guys talking about a staff site visit? Is that what you have in mind?
As Glenn stated, this is a category 2 house, and it's difficult, I think, from the amount of evidence that is here to determine sort of beyond a reasonable doubt that there was a balcony there originally. Certainly a little bit of very careful selective demolition might answer that question. And under those circumstances, a staff visit might be appropriate. I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I think to clarify my position, it would be if Ms. Lane's saying she thinks that piece of paneling is not original anyway, remove that piece of paneling under the window, and staff could visit and photograph the condition of the masonry.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that.
Okay, so what about a motion like deferral for selective demolition and staff verification of precedents and final review by staff?
All right, we have a motion on the floor for deferral for selected demolition and staff verification of the precedents and final review by staff. Did I get that right?
I would,
think so.
I would
Real
just ask
quick.
for one amendment to that.
Yeah, me as well. Go ahead, Glenn.
Selective interior demolition, not exterior demolition.
Cool, yeah. Lindsay, please amend.
Yeah, deferral for selected interior demolition. Okay.
And what I was going to add is if it is a final review by staff, I would probably place in that the shop drawings from the fabricator be submitted for that approval.
Okay, Kim, did you get that addition as well with the shop drawings to be submitted?
I did, thank you.
Okay. All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Glenn, was that you?
Yep, sorry.
I will now put it to a vote. Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor.
Glenn?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes with the majority and the motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on to the final agenda item, number 10, 128 San Suu Street. Kim, if you will give an overview of the project.
Just a moment, one moment. Okay, number 10 is 128 San Suu Street, requesting final approval for window removal. It's a category 4, I believe, in Wagner Terrace neighborhood, built in 1935 in historic material demo purview area. Just for your familiarization with the house, it's the north side of the street between Darlington and Ashley. And here are a couple of site photos. This is looking east and looking west. And we have Mr. Tommy Attridge. If you want to take it from here, you've got the floor.
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm the homeowner of 128 San Suu Street. We're proposing trying to replace the original windows in the home. While we love the look and the feel of the original wood windows and want to replace them in kind, they leak consistently in heavy rains, which has created rot and maintenance issues. And they're obviously incredibly energy inefficient for excess heat, cold, and moisture in the dwelling. As I mentioned, they leak at various locations during downpours and heavy winds and have rot issues for that reason. They're also painted shut, so for fire safety, the windows cannot be opened and accessed from any of the 3 upstairs bedrooms, as well as any of the windows located downstairs on the main floor. The cost to properly refurbish these windows and their sashes would be equal to, if not more expensive, and to replace them with similar looking wood frame, energy efficient, hurricane rated windows that mimic the current light and look from the street. We've bought this home 3 years ago and have taken great care in renovating it over time and upgrading it over time while keeping the same aesthetic. We really love the look of this home. It's the reason we bought this home. So we're not trying to change anything there in terms of the appeal and the look of the light over light. The new windows would match the new windows that were installed on the addition that we had built on the backside of the property that finished up last year, and make the entire house uniform in that regard. Again, not trying to disturb the look and the feel and the character of our house. That's ultimately why we love where we live. Just trying to avoid excess maintenance issues that are unnecessary and try to upgrade the windows accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Attridge. Do we have any board comments?
Kim, can you go back to that window submittal page? So this is referencing the Marvin Elevate window product. Is that correct?
Bill, I'd use caution as we don't have any purview of what goes next, just a reminder.
I'm only asking because the applicant stated they were all wood. That product actually is I believe a PVC or fiberglass exterior. I'm just making sure of which product it is.
I know, Mr. Huey, that our new windows are the same type and they are wood.
But the request is for a wholesale removal, is that correct?
Of the, yeah, that's correct, of the original windows. That's right.
Any other board questions? Let's move on to public comment. Kim, I see we have Historic Charleston on deck. April, whenever you're ready.
April Wood, Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has reviewed the application for demolition of the windows at 128 Sans Souci Street. We are opposed to the request for demolition of the historic windows of this house. The wood windows are character defining features of this house and should be repaired rather than replaced in accordance to the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. There are many good craftspeople in Charleston who could address the problems with the windows. We recommend denial of the demolition of the windows at 128 Sans Souci. Thank you.
Kim, I don't see any other public comment. Do we have anyone speaking?
We don't.
Okay, I'll turn it over to you.
Just have a couple comments. The windows are character defining features of the building and should be retained in accordance with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. Preservation staff and the VAR have repeatedly recommended denial for the loss of the historic fabric such as these. These windows are in repairable condition. The staff recommends denial. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Mr. Attridge, did you want to clarify anything in response to comments from Historic Charleston and staff?
No, I'm disheartened to see this. I'm by no means trying to change the character defining features of the building and believe that our replacement windows would not do that. I'm a little frustrated in that I don't think the BAR, maybe they do potentially, but I don't think you fully understand the costs associated and rot and mold that creates health hazards here that we're just trying to remedy. So I appreciate your time, but I'm obviously disheartened with the result.
Thank you, Mr. Attridge. I'm actually going to move now to board discussion and a vote on this.
This is Julia, and just for the benefit of Mr. Attridge, I mean, we do understand the cost, but we're not allowed to factor in financial concerns into our decisions. We're just here to promote preservation of historic material, and you know, any new windows that you can get today would not be the same as that old material you've got. And I mean, we say this every time we're in this situation, but just so you know, if there is a particular sash or element that is, you know, completely beyond repair, you can talk to staff and one particular element can be replaced in kind, but wholesale removal is just not okay. It would be really bad for the house, whether you get that or not.
Fillmore Wilson here. I would commend the applicant. I went by and took a really close look at the house from the sidewalk, and clearly there's been a lot of effort to maintain this house in very good condition, so I applaud that. However, the windows are certainly salvageable, and if there is a window or a part of a window which is deteriorated beyond repair, as Julia mentioned, that can be restored by any number of very good local craftsmen. And so I could not support the wholesale replacement of these windows, particularly with modern IG windows.
I'll just add, I certainly don't support replacing them wholesale, but I'll also acknowledge, one who lives with old windows and has their old windows worked on, it really is not that difficult to repair old windows as needed. And truthfully, it is far less invasive to the house to pop off a little bit of trim to repair and sometimes even fully replace a single wood window sash than to have to remove an entire window system and put in a modern one, and deal with the flashing concerns and how you keep water out from the perimeter of a new window. So I am as sympathetic as anybody can get about living with old windows and keeping water out of my house and hopefully out of your house. So as Fillmore said, you actually don't have to be a rocket scientist to work on these windows. They're really, really simple to do. Dare I say, a homeowner can do it themselves with time and a few tools. And I promise that is true because I have worked on my own windows. So, and I'm not a rocket scientist. So I'll move for denial of the application with encouragement to repair and replace in kind as needed with staff review.
Second that.
Glenn? That was your motion, Julia.
Correct.
All right, I'll put it to a vote. Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Glenn?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes with the majority and the motion passes unanimously. That completes our agenda for this meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Make a
moved.
motion. Go ahead, Bill.